Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Sam Williams.
Hello.
And formerly Sir Bruce Fitzpatrick. I'm joined by Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Hi,
Hello.
Bruce.
Thanks for stripping me of the knighthood that I never actually gained.
Well, you were quite upset last time we used it, so I thought...
No. I mean it. Thank you.
You're looking very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I must admit, Bruce.
Yeah, I'm I've had a couple of coffees and I'm wired and I'm ready to just spew some vitriol here and just talk about everything that grinds my gears. It's been a few weeks, of course, hasn't it, since we last caught up. We've had a range of decent guest interviews, but it's been a few weeks since we gave some hot takes on the tour.
Yeah,
Lots happened in the interceding period.
Let's let our listeners judge whether they're hot or not, but takes nonetheless. A quick word for one of our sponsors before we roll into the discussion. We are now all Virtuo Nespresso consumers, which is, like Christ, it's a game changer. We are running an ad here for Nespresso. I should.
No, the nice guys in Nespresso sent us over some coffee at full cost, and it was very, very good coffee, full cost, and we paid for the machine. It's similar to how anyone else would appropriate coffee, but it was it's changed your life. But you were a normal small capsule boy, weren't you, Bruce? And you've had to upgrade in your life.
Yeah, I refunded it. I picked the wrong machine. I'm not sort of woke enough to have small 40 ml or 20 ml shots of coffee. So I decided to get the slightly bigger machine that does long black stuff.
You look like bulging with caffeine, though.
I'm enjoying it. I'm only on 1.5 cups a day, probably, but it's good. I mean, I know some people. A good friend of mine has been on eight cups of coffee and pre-workout and a Monster each day over the lockdown period. So,
how's he getting on?
In
Caffeine.
about 6 weeks.
yeah. Caffeine intake's a fickle thing, but I'm hopeful that it will boost my podcast performance.
Well, again, we'll let our listeners judge. So, where do we start? Obviously, quite a bit going on in the world of golf. Who's going to kick it off?
Well, is it worth maybe just looking at the last few weeks in kind of overview, and then we can focus in on the WGC Concession more recently. But I guess the last time we spoke was just after the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Spieth has obviously since gone on to play pretty well and recorded a good finish at Pebble Beach, even though he had the lead and didn't quite get it done. It looks like he might be in the ascendancy. So yet again, some of the cookie jars takes in previous months about him losing his form and being in his golf game being in terminal decline have yet again been proven to be wrong. So I actually feel like we're doing a good job on this podcast of maybe inspiring people into some form, which is nice.
Spieth looks crazy good all of a sudden. Like it's night and day. Absolute night and day.
Finau, on the other hand, hasn't quite managed to close it out, has he?
Oh, we'll get on to poor old Tony Finau in a moment. But I think in the last few weeks since we spoke, we have probably hit the most interesting stretch of golf courses. I think it's Pebble Beach, Riviera, and Concessional. Concessional.
What the hell are we on?
I've not heard of that one, actually.
We've got to cut you some slack because you kind of got some big news we're hoping to announce this week and you've got a lot on your mind, but we're not going to be flagrantly adding AL to every tournament that we go and...
What do I think? What's the one that has an AL at the end in America?
Augusta National. That might be a possible one.
No.
So
Congressional. That's what I'm thinking of. Concession. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just double down on Spieth for a minute. So, going back a few weeks ago, Farmers Insurance, he was perilously close to dropping out the world top 100. Guy's starting to look like a world beater. I'd hazard an opinion to say that Spieth is globally now probably the one person that everyone wants to see win an event more than anyone out there. I know I do.
Yeah.
That's a sample size of one.
Asterisk.
Yeah.
Tony
But
Finau,
that's
come on.
yeah. No. I think Spieth is.
If they were going down the stretch, Tony B. I like Spieth. I've said this on the pod. I want him to win, but Tony's my man. Like he has to win. So that's my opinion on it. I don't mind you having an opinion on Spieth. You're welcome to your own opinions. That's fine.
It's amazing he didn't actually play at the concession because he obviously is not ranked highly enough. He's 60th in the world, 62nd in the world or something. But prior to that, obviously he's had a good run of form, tied 4th at the Waste Management, tied 3rd at the AT&T, and then tied 15th at the Genesis. So he's certainly trending in a really positive direction. And actually, did you mention the Farmers Insurance there, Sam, and how it looked like, okay, so this slipped under the radar. I don't know if you guys saw this. Golf Digest, their Instagram, put up a good little quote from Koepka, who's obviously another man who's found some form contrary to some wild cookie jar conjecture. He said, talking about, just his sort of state of mind prior to winning in Phoenix. This is a direct quote. Koepka says, "I snapped 2 sets of irons after playing Mexico and then after Torrey, and I don't really do that. I don't think I came out of the room for about 30 hours or so. I was so mad at myself." Can we just appreciate the rage and like the duration of someone's rage when you snap 2 sets of irons? This isn't, a couple of irons. This is
it's close on 20 golf clubs,
20 golf clubs, give or take. The inability to just stop maybe after club 3 or 5 or 10 and say, yeah, to be fair, mate, I've probably done enough damage here already.
But he was really honest about that, wasn't he? When he got interviewed, he was like, yeah, I was in a dark space. Like, I didn't think I was going to come back from this stuff after his win in Phoenix. And yeah, he's the coolest guy. He's the coolest guy out there. Like, he is so nonchalant, and that shows you that it's got to be an element of front. Like, I know Koepka's always, I think he's previously gone on the record as saying, I will try not to react to a bad shot because I don't want to let on to people I'm playing with that I'm disappointed with where I put the ball. So clearly there's an element of front there because that's the antithesis of what you would expect Koepka to do in response to poor golf. You know what I mean? It's just,
yeah.
But the whole thing's a joke because like Brooks Koepka, who gets paid to play golf and gets all of his shit for free,
exactly.
He snapped a whole bunch of golf clubs is akin to being like, yeah, I punched a wall. Well, did you actually punch a concrete wall? No, it was made of paper, but I punched a wall. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like,
well, yeah, it's like punching. It's like punching 20 walls, though. I think really is the thing I find. 20, but it's 20 paper walls. I've snapped a couple of clubs in my time. Hold my hands up. I've never, ever snapped 20.
No. You're not getting past that. How have you snapped golf clubs? You're the least angry person I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, never in
come on, over the knee.
Serious, well, just in frustration. Yeah. I've snapped 2 over my knee, I think. This is not. I mean, I've been playing since I was 3, and I don't think that's the worst crime ever. I don't think I've done it in public.
I've never seen someone snap a golf club ever.
Really?
No, I've not done it. Never seen it.
Yeah. Well, imagine being in a fly on the wall on Brooks Koepka's in Brooks Koepka's hotel room and watching him snap 20. It's the volume. Yeah, it's just a volume. I think people need to be made aware.
Do you think he'd go for different body parts, like snap at one knee? Then the shoulder,
and the other
one off the head. Yeah. I think he was just.
I just think it's staggering, actually. But anyway, yeah, that was just my little kind of social media corner.
The key takeaways are that for Brooks Koepka, that if he plays poorly and has a bad stretch of runs, just call up the club manufacturer, snap them all in half, and go again.
Yeah,
easy peasy.
It looked pretty good though, didn't it? The weekend at Concession, I thought it was an impressive one. I mean, it would be remiss not to talk a little bit about Morikawa at the weekend.
Yeah.
So it's not just Morikawa. You've got Hovland, 23 years of age. You got Scheffler's 24. These guys are like crazily composed, aren't they? Like, how mature does Colin Morikawa look coming down the stretch? Just ice cold. Looks literally unflappable. I mean, granted, he's hitting the ball on a frozen rope every single. It's like on repeat. Like that doesn't look like that. So that's going to give you an element of confidence. But yeah, like just fearless, absolutely fearless.
Do you know where his driving accuracy was on the last day?
Pretty good.
93%. 72% green and regs, and then there was like +2 strokes gained putting. Like that's going to get it done.
It's his iron game that's so good. Like it's of a different order to the competition. If you obviously read, a few months ago, we were talking a lot about the Mark Brody book and every shot counts and stuff. And contrary to the drive for show, putt for dough kind of rhetoric, approach stats are the most important things out there. And he is like head and shoulders above, he's essentially number one strokes gained approach the green. You put him in that sort of 125 to 175 space where they're coming in from frequently. And he is, he's pretty much untouchable from that range. So,
yeah. And it's interesting because I think his strokes gained putting were maybe +2. Typically, though, someone who wins a PGA Tour event are in the realms of +3.5 to +5 strokes gained putting. So he's obviously below what the average winner is, but he makes up for it in his iron game and more than makes up for it because he won by a pretty comfortable margin in the end, didn't he? His course management looked pretty impeccable as well. I know Scott Fawcett did his kind of decade analysis as he often does with winners and says that he was, playing to the fat side of the green and the right side of pins all the way round. And as a result, his short game, which doesn't look the most sort of stable, I don't think he's a brilliant chipper, wasn't really tested. Didn't really need to chip that well. Because his iron game was so good and his driving was so good and he was missing it in the right spots. He didn't really have demanding shots. The only time where it maybe looked a little sketchy was it on the 17th hole, the par 5, where he's chipping over a bunker onto a downslope, running away from him towards the water. He just overshot it slightly, but even then, makes his par and kind of gets out of there with a comfortable lead.
He just played smart, didn't he? Like he didn't take any risks really. He was just played really, really smart. And he gave quite a nice emotive victory speech as well. Talking about Tiger, and that was all quite interesting, wasn't it?
Do you feel like there's a changing of the guard at the moment with seeing players like Hovland, Scotty Scheffler is there week in, week out now. Colin Morikawa looks the coolest at the moment. But at that age, it's, the only person, it's another one of these stats that's done the rounds this week. The only person to win a major and a WGC before the age of 25 is Tiger.
Yeah.
Does it feel like maybe that kind of cohort of those guys that were around in that year are going to that's going to become the dominating landscape for the next 5-6 years in the game? Do you think?
I'm going to answer your question with a question, which is always a good
rather you answered with an answer. To be honest.
Well, how you say it's a changing of guard from what guard? Like who were the previous generation?
I mean, it's a continuum, isn't it? So there's not generations as such, but they look like a dominating force all of a sudden at that age. When you think, I mean, professional golfers really hit their prime 30 to 35. That's the numbers. So the highest representation of PGA Tour players is in the 30 to 35 bracket, and at 24 you've got world beaters. So it's a pretty strong sign, isn't it? And I'd go out on a limb and say Rory doesn't. This is the cookie jar conjecture coming back in, but Rory doesn't look like the world beater he was, does he? At the moment, he doesn't look like going out and winning and hunting things down week in, week out. And you see these guys who look so hungry, and you're thinking, Brooks obviously had his battles with a little bit of injury. You can see players like Webb Simpson, who are top flight players. They must look at these kids coming through and being like, yeah, this is scary. Like on their best day, I can't really hold a torch to them. I don't know. They just look like quite a fairly imposing force on the game now, I think, when you look at the results they're starting to bring in quite quickly in their careers.
I think it's more of a reflection of how strong the American collegiate system is. Like they just tend to be coming out now of college and just being like, yeah, I'm here, I'm good enough to be here and I'm going to win. And I can't see that pathway in Europe. I can't see any European youngsters coming out and being like, Well, exactly. And that's got to be a problem, hasn't it? If you want good young Europeans, you've either got to, if they're going to be battle hardened by the time they're 21, they've either got to go turn pro early or go to America. Seems to be the way for them.
Well, yeah, I think going to America is actually the way to do it as well, because you get such a great exposure on the NCAA circuit. And Hovland, he's European. Okay, he's almost like an adopted American, but when the Ryder Cup rolls around, he'll be playing for Europe. It's just, I think there's a tendency to maybe overstate it, because that college system's always been far stronger than anything we have in Europe. And we've obviously seen 3 or 4 players come through over the last year or so who are particularly strong. Maybe we're over exaggerating it a little bit, but I still think like Dustin Johnson is by far and away the best player in the world right now. And there's a significant margin between him and second place. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. You mentioned Rory there, Sam. Talk about you offering up some conjecture. I'll do you one better. Yeah, I'll do you one better. But to me, he actually just doesn't seem that fussed about like the competitive side of the game so much anymore. And I know that seems like a bonkers statement, but he's obviously been made chairman of the PGA Tour Players Board, or whatever it's called, at the age of 31. And he's always, I think, been very well regarded as a spokesman for the game. Obviously, the PGA Tour social media channels were talking about the players' reaction at Concession to Tiger's car crash, which no doubt we'll get onto in a bit more detail. And a lot of people were saying, oh, it's terrible. It'll be interesting to see if he comes back. And Rory, offered the best take of the lot by saying, look, it's really not about golf. He's already done so much for the game. What's important is, the fact that he's still able to be a dad to his 2 kids. And he offers such a great perspective on things. And he's always, like, I remember years ago, like there were photos of Rory sat down with like Bill Clinton and other politicians and heads of state. And I think he's always kind of enjoyed the political sort of aspects of that come with his role and his status. And he just doesn't seem like that fussed about being the best player in the world anymore. And I think in the past he was so good and picked up so many shots on the field with his long game, with his driving and his iron play and every facet. He didn't have to putt that well to win. Whereas now, he's going on a streak of
marginalized
top 5, top 10s, top 20s. But there's got other guys out there who are probably just working harder than him. And he's got some other stuff that he's interested in, which is, he has every right to be. But I don't see that same competitive energy that was there in 2012, 2014.
I mean, just challenging you back in terms of work ethic, because I think he missed the cut at Riv. Literally the next morning, he was down the range, 3-4 hours of work straight away on the long game. And, people were holding him up as saying, like, that's an incredible work ethic. You missed the cut and you just straight back out grinding to try and improve it. So, I don't know.
I'm sure, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a snapshot. And I'm sure other people would have. So this is the difference between perception and kind of firsthand. Clearly, we haven't got Roy's firsthand take on how he sees it. But to the viewer, it's exactly how it appears. So I 100% agree, in so much as it doesn't look like there's, I'm sure the guy's not turning up, not trying to win, but he just doesn't look like the world beater he was. His distance and his long game he was prolific, but there's so many other people out on tour now that skill set has become marginalized. Like it doesn't come through. It's kind of,
he's not got the same relative advantage. Yeah.
No,
there are other people who hit the ball as far and as straight as he does.
Yeah, but you say that, but like, I'm going to push back with both of you here. First of all, none of us know what he's doing in private. Like, there's no way that none of us know. And how do you look like you're trying harder? Unless he's like throwing his clubs and being all pissed off. How did he look to the normal viewer like he's he's trying hard? He could be trying hard. We've got no idea. He's just not.
Well, I think the players committee thing, I think that's kind of, if that's a priority for you, then what's not a priority? Do you know what I mean? That's not a role I would have expected.
It's not a symbolic title, is it? There's some work that goes into that. And he is always giving a very candid, open, kind of interview. He's the polar opposite of Koepka, and that's not saying all PGA Tour players who want to win should give interviews that are as curt as Koepka's. Far from it. But if we just look back over the last, year or few months, even of Rory's kind of time on the PGA Tour, he's been appointed chairman of the Players Committee at 31. He is a young man by all accounts. The Champions Tour eligibility doesn't kick in until the age of 50. And that's clearly a significant amount of work. And he's also come out a couple of weeks ago, maybe slightly longer, talking about the distance insight and how it was reeking of self-importance, and the RNA and the USGA weren't doing a particularly good job as gatekeepers of the game, and there should be more done to encourage more minorities to play golf, more women to play golf, etc. So he's been very vocal and very candid in terms of his take on things. And I don't maybe see all. Justin Thomas, actually, another example after the Justin Thomas homophobic slurs.
They're good takes.
He's straight on it.
They are really good, refreshing.
Oh, absolutely,
takes.
Yeah. And I'm not saying bloody hell, Rory, like pull up your socks, mate. Forget all the politics stuff. Go and work on becoming world number one again. Like it's just my observation is his priorities have shifted, and that's totally cool. I just think it's interesting that someone who is clearly as talented as he is focusing more on the political stuff, the high politics of golf, rather than going out and winning as many events as he can. And that he has every right to do that. Every right to do that.
And look, I mean, we can't spend the whole pod talking about Rory, but he is a frustrating golfer to watch, because I always say it, he never finds that gear that everyone feels like he can just step into and just show the field his heels. He doesn't seem to have that ability to step into that, and that's what makes him so frustrating, I think, to watch. You want to watch that on Sunday when he's starting. I think it was about 4 or 5 shots adrift or something like that on the final round, and you just watch him go out and just say, right, here comes a 63. He's going to burn it up and take it. And it just never gets going. It's a lot of sort of like head craned backwards when a putt's just kind of rolled by the side, and you just sort of watch it, and it's like
slouch
it just
shoulders.
Feels like, it feels like a sort of a bullet wound to the stomach. You're just watching him slowly bleed out over the weekend and just not kind of get it done. But I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? And I do think there is some truth. He's highly available with the media, isn't he? When he's very frank, he's very candid, he's pretty vulnerable, and to an extent, maybe that doesn't help things, but it's an interesting one.
We need a spokesman as good as him. Golf is lucky to have someone who is such a great advocate and representative ambassador, is definitely the word I was looking for there, for the sport. He's given some brilliant takes over the last few months. I'm really just questioning whether you can maintain, the high level of play that he's been known for and do all of those other roles on the side, because they're both draining. They're really, really draining. Dustin doesn't seem to do a lot on the side. He's just kind of dialed in on his goal.
I was just doing a little bit of research to see, do you know who he replaced as the PGA Tour player chairman?
I don't.
That
probably tells Charlie Hoffman, right?
Charlie Hoffman. But
and Charlie Hoffman only has to worry about shooting 64 on the opening day of the Masters. That's his only thing he does each year.
He's also taken on the role. He will succeed Jordan Spieth as player director of the PGA Tour policy, served for 3 years. So Jordan Spieth had this role, a different role, which was the director of the PGA Tour policy board, player director. Before him. Now, Jordan could only have been about 22 when he had that. So it's a 3-year gig. So 21, 22?
Maybe we've landed on something here.
And Jordan Spieth's fall from grace.
He's coming out of that now. Spieth a world beater again. Spieth to the Grand Slam in 2022. I mean, Christ, you've heard it all here on the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast.
Conjecture.
Yeah, I don't know. Really tricky one to answer. And that's why I look at people who look like scarily good finishers, and maybe it's the kind of the arrogance of youth, but the likes of Morikawa just look far more accomplished at getting a job done on a Sunday at the moment than the likes of Rory. They look much more likely to go out and paint the card red and get it over the line.
You say that. That was Morikawa's first win from a 54-hole lead.
Really? Yeah.
But how many times has he started with a 54-hole lead?
I've got no idea, but I know it's his first win from a 54-hole lead.
To be fair, though, to Morikawa, he gave an absolutely awesome interview, I think, after just talking about, thanking people more and people should thank Tiger. And I just thought it was a very nice touch at the end of it. But yeah, no one's getting interviewed as much as Rory, that's for sure.
I think moving on a little bit, I think the Tiger thing, we all watched the Genesis at Riviera, and we were like, we watched that interview live with Tiger. We didn't watch it live, we watched it, and Tiger Woods gave that interview, and we all had a WhatsApp group. We were all saying, Christ, he looks. I mean, it's a poor take now. You know what's happened, but we were like, Christ, he looks stoned. Like he looked so out of it in terms of like he was slurring.
I didn't say he looked stoned. To be fair, I just he looked under the influence.
He looked absolutely out of it, didn't he? And we were saying like he was
obviously in a lot of pain.
Yeah. And he was slurring his words, and we were saying he looks like in a real bad way. And then obviously the crash, which we can't put it towards anything. We don't know anything about it really. Conjecture only. But
well, actually, you say that. A lot of people, I think, myself included, may have thought, oh God, he might have been driving under the influence again. And, after that interview where it seemed like he was on some pretty stiff pain relief, maybe he was in a car and shouldn't have been. I'll hold my hands up and say that was my initial reaction. But I think the sheriff who pulled him or first identified him at the wreck of his car was like, no, he was sober and totally lucid. And it's since transpired that is a notoriously dangerous stretch of road in LA. Yeah. I think it's like one of the most dangerous stretches of road in the country. And isn't it something like residents who live there change their brake pads like 4 times more frequently than is usually recommended? I think I read somewhere. Yeah, so it's real? Actually, it's like a freak stretch of road.
Black spot, isn't it?
And he's obviously, I think he was maybe in a rush or something to get to or from a filming gig. So terribly, terribly sad story.
I think it'll all come out in the wash, and there's literally no point wasting any time speculating on it because there's enough people out there doing it. And I don't think it really adds that much value. But
no. What was your take on the players wearing red in support, Sam? What do you think of that?
He's not dead, is he?
No, I thought I felt like people have maybe been backed into it a little bit, into doing something like that as a gesture, given the coverage.
Were they all Nike athletes?
No, they all kind of had their own little setup. I think most of them.
Most of them were like Nike,
yeah.
Nike have coordinated something. They've coordinated something well. Yeah, they did, because it was like Fleetwood, he's Nike. Jason Day is obviously Nike. So is Finau, Cameron Champ as well. Rory, Patrick Reed. I did. Yeah, find it quite amusing when I think BJ Tour put up a post after Morikawa had won, just saying like, victory for Colin, whatever. It was just a still image, and the comments section on Instagram, one guy was like, I find it absolutely appalling that no one in the final group, so Colin and Billy Horschel, I find it absolutely appalling that none of them wore red and black to celebrate Tiger. And like Billy Horschel commented on it saying, mate, I don't carry black and red pants like wherever I travel, like all the time. I wrote TW on my hat, but I'm sorry, like I couldn't go and just get a red shirt and some black trousers.
I think that's the issue. And Max Homer took dead aim on Twitter with it. And he was like, look, I haven't got it there. And like, I don't know, at the end of the day, it's clothes. Like, I think actions speak a hell of a lot louder than what you bloody wear. Like, there's far too much attention week in, week out on sodding what people are wearing. Like, I think it's a nice gesture. Like, one thing was really clear from the last week's events with Tiger is how much, it's just a reminder of how much he's transcended the sport. Like, he is, a monumental figure, and it's a good reminder for that. And it's a really sad story. Whether people wear red and black on the final day doesn't change any of that. Like, it's a lovely gesture to show support, but the fact of the matter is everyone out on tour owes a lot to Tiger, and I think those guys all would openly admit it if they were interviewed about it. And then to lambast players because they've not worn a certain thing, I just thought, I'm like, kind of get over yourself, just find something else to talk about. But the one interesting thing, just on a little point of levity, is they are difficult colors to wear. Like, black how bad do some people look in the black pants with the red top? Like,
I'm really annoyed at myself. We're saying pants now as English people. We should be wearing trousers.
Well, you're annoyed at me for that, but you know what I mean? Black trousers and
no, I wanted to check myself.
Nuts though, isn't it?
Speaking of sort of bad takes that have happened in the last few weeks after the crash, you highlighted a Bryson DeChambeau post, Bruce.
Oh my word! Yeah, is that still on there?
I don't know. I haven't looked.
What was it on Instagram?
Can you describe it for our
I'm
listeners?
going to see if it's. I don't think he's gotten rid of it yet, has he? Yeah, this is amazing. Okay, it's still there. So it's a video with some Kygo, tropical house music laid over it of DeChambeau just wailing on a driver at Concession with his launch monitor. And the caption is, "Prep for WGC workday underway. Just hearing about #Tiger Woods and prayers are with him for a full recovery." I mean, there's literally no that kind of passing mention at the end is just the most insincere kind of throwaway comment, isn't it? It's like,
it's a bit classless, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Oh man, yeah. For a guy who seems to tick all the boxes in terms of thanking his sponsors, and he seems to be working very hard to create a really good, like, marketable public image or public persona. Yeah, just that sort of add-on at the end, just saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm just hearing about Tiger Woods. Watch me fly driver 350, and by the way, I hope you make a good recovery." It's just like, mate, come on.
Well, we thought it'd be good to have a little short pod because we've got another one landing, haven't we, later this week, which is particularly exciting, I think. So, Bruce, do you want to kind of allude to what we've got to look forward to later this week?
David Normal.
Who is?
Yes, of course. So well-renowned historian David Normal, we got to speak to a week or so ago. Just a very interesting podcast on Arnold Palmer and his legacy, and kind of, maybe an overview of his career and a lot of the kind of the blend of character and personality, as David puts it, which made him such a endearing figure to so many people, but also someone who transcended the game of golf in much the same way, arguably a greater way than Tiger has. It was a fascinating discussion with David. He is certainly the world expert on Arnold Palmer, as someone who's in charge of kind of figuring out the legacy for the Palmer family and how we can, remember this figure and give him his place in golf history going forward, because he's obviously a really important part of how the game's evolved. And with Bay Hill, the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill coming up this week, I thought it was a very, sensible time to speak to someone like David. So it was, great getting him on the podcast, and I think it's quite an interesting listen.
Yeah, it was good fun chatting to him, wasn't it? He's such a knowledgeable guy.
Yeah.
And we chatted to him for a while before and afterwards. It's really, really, really good fun. And I did my research. I read a book, which made me basically the world's leader in Arnold Palmer, because I read one book. And
bring in the professionals. That's the ticket. And I'm looking over your left shoulder at the moment, Tom, at a little picture of Mickey Mouse. So David makes a pretty good mention in there to Disney, which is cool, which is feels like an opportune moment to drop our first newsletter as well, I thought, given that the stretch of the season we're heading into, obviously exciting times ahead. Arnold Palmer Invitational, got the Players, Masters, and we're into major season thereafter. And David makes some good points about the Disney stuff, which kind of got us chatting away amongst the jar. So that's all good.
And you've expanded on and elaborated on in the newsletter, of course.
We're sub 4 weeks from striking a golf ball as well, chaps. It's countdown, 27 days. Perhaps we should just start the pod with a number of days left. 27 days. So until then, thank you very much for listening. If you want to get in touch, or if you have any questions or comments on anything that we've talked about in this podcast, please do get in touch on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and you can listen to us on Clubhouse if you like to listen to drivel. And until then, we will see you next time.
Watch this.